Here with Remax experts here, taking an in-depth look at the real estate market watch as it relates to Shelby County and the metropolitan area. I did some deep diving into the numbers month over month as we approach the spring, just to try to see what the trends are, and the information was quite enlightening to say the least. Of course, being on the ground as a full-time agent, I know that inventory is low, and of course there's far more buyers in the market than there are supply. But to what degree is that actually affecting things on a grander scale? So I went back and looked at February and March, and the sales were up roughly 21%. And so that was as we came to beginning to deal with the pandemic and came into the early part of the spring months. Also, during that same time period, inventory was low, about 13%. And so that's really have affected the market, coupled by people on the fence at the end of last year, waiting for the spring of this year to actually even get into the market. I think because of the most recent government statements about gradually, incrementally open up the economy, I think hopefully inventory will continue to trend up, but I don't really see any real deterrent in terms of buyers not necessarily entering the marketplace. Now, granted, financing guidelines are actually changing almost by the day and sometimes multiple times a day given the COVID-19 pandemic. But by and large, after speaking with multiple lenders, also getting on different conference calls with lenders, the consensus is that things for that nature, in some cases, rates are changing for some lenders. In other cases, they aren't changing. Of course, on a national scale, the big banks have scaled up the credit score that you need. Of course, also the down payment amount too. So for some big banks, those things are taking shape. But here on the local level, I really haven't seen that based on the conversation that we've had with a lot of local lenders that we actually tend to deal with, because we know them, they're personable, and it's easier to kind of transact with somebody that you actually physically know. And so also, during this same time period, the medium sales are up roughly about 14%, and also the monthly sales volume is up about 12%. So all sales related in terms of real estate is up. The only, I guess, negative aspect of that, I guess the downside to all of that, is that the inventory is low. And so by and large, I think as we begin to come out of this, the more and more sellers are going to be willing to go ahead and put their home on the market, even for those who think that some foreclosures to some degree is going to impact the market 2 to 3, 4, 5 months down the road. I don't know whether that may be the case. It may or may not be. But for a seller that's on the fence, if that's their ideal thought process, then you most definitely want to go ahead and get your home on the market and sold before that takes shape. On the other end of the spectrum, you got buyers who was like, well, why buy now when I can wait 4 or 5 months and maybe get a steal of a deal? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But in the event that you can't, then basically 4 to 5 months from now, if things continue to trend downward in terms of dealing with the pandemic, school eventually start, and people will kind of be where they are for the rest of the 2020 calendar year. And if that's the case, then you just gonna have to, you essentially may just have to deal with still buying a home at a higher price, or at least not necessarily having a lot of options, because by that time the bulk of the market in terms of people putting their home on the market would be down as opposed to it is right now. Just wanted to touch base and kind of put that out there for right now. Of course, you can always reach me or kind of follow me. All my handles at Real Estate Consultant. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. Thanks.